Hello, quick thing before the video. I forgot to say massive spoilers for House of the Dragon. No spoilers for Dunk and Egg though, so you'll be fine with that. Anyway, on with the video. Hello, and welcome to a ranking of all of the Queen and Prince consorts of A Song of Ice and Fire. As you may have guessed, if you're quick-witted from the inclusion of Prince consorts, this will also include all of the pretenders. There's about 5 or 6, 7 or something. And so we have 29. I don't have a thumbnail yet. This is the state of the thumbnail. So you'll just have to stare at this, I'm afraid. While I try and remember if there's anything else I need to say. Probably not. Should we get started? Because with the consorts, there's a kind of a tricky thing, which I didn't really have with the other rankings I've done, where there is a very obvious winner, right? With the kings, and the pretenders and the Kingsguard and the hands, there's a bunch of people who will probably be at the top, but individual preference could pick any number of them. Whereas with the consorts, there's kind of an obvious one, if you know the lore, who would be odds-on favourite to win, and I have picked them to win, which makes it kind of an anticlimax when I get to the end. So for this one, in a shocking twist, I'm going to do the first place first, and then count back from 29. It's going to be like a sort of, best of the rest contest. Because it's like, the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, or Ligue 1 with PSG. We all know who's going to win. Probably more interesting is who's going to finish second. So with that said, we'll start with number 1, which is Good Queen Alysanne. We'll put her there so that she can be revealed. And yeah, if you know anything about Good Queen Alysanne, you know why she's up here. Her name includes the word good. I mean, that's pretty good, isn't it? Case closed. Pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of people who say that one of the best things about Jaehaerys' reign is that he's married to Good Queen Alysanne. Because a lot of the good reforms that happened during his reign happened because of her. A lot of the stuff that I like, because I like, stuff with the small folk. And I suppose I always forget to do this. I always forget to set the terms of engagement at the start, like what counts when you're ranking consorts, because it's not the same thing as like the kings or the Kingsguard or whatever. And there's a fair few things. There's, of course, if you do anything good for the realm or good for the small folk, then that counts in your favour, especially with me. That's what I like to see in any position. And the other stuff that's sort of more specific to the consorts, like how much they help their king or queen. And within that, I will sort of take into account if their king is bad, then maybe working against that king is net positive, so I'll give you points for that. And then other stuff, I guess, like having kids is good for a queen or king. It's kind of what they're there for, no offense. So any positives there is good. And sort of, we'll also give you points for being like a queen mother, or in some cases, family and other family member to the existent king and acting as an advisor. And with all that said, Good Queen Alysanne is pretty good on all fronts. I mean, you've got all of her special laws that she does to help the small folk out, making domestic violence illegal, improving water quality, giving land to the Watch, all this good stuff. And it's just good, isn't it? I mean, she has a bunch of kids. Basically, the only reason the Targaryen dynasty continues is because of her. And Jaehaerys, I guess, does take 2. But yeah, I'm kind of not spending too long on this one because it's a fairly uncontroversial pick, as I said at the start, which is why it's here. So with that, massive anticlimax out of the way, should we get onto the bad ones and then work our way up? Because the other thing is, right, second place, I'll tell you this now, actually came a lot closer to challenging Good Queen Alysanne than I thought anyone would. But still not quite enough. So that's why I decided to do it this way. But second place, it's very good. But yeah. So in 29th out of 29, we have Cersei Lannister. Oh, and I also have 2 columns here for who they're married to and art credit if there's one relevant. Now, Cersei is, pretty bad. I mean, she kills the king. Now, there's other people who do kill the king or are suspected of killing the king on this list, or suspected of trying to kill the king / queen. But in those cases, you either take into account the fact that maybe they didn't do it, and also whether the king was evil. Hint, Maegor the Cruel. And in those cases, you're fair enough. But Cersei is just killing good old Bobby B. I mean, he's not the nicest guy in the world, but he's also not evil. In terms of, he's not that bad for the realm. He's all right. So yeah, Cersei killing him is pretty bad. She also has bastard children, which is very bad for realm stability. That's what leads to this massive civil war, after all. She's also just generally a very bad ruler when she's Queen Regent. She catastrophically destroys her own side, including for both of her sons, Joffrey and Tommen. More so Tommen, but she's not exactly helpful for Joffrey either. I struggle to think of anything that she could do worse. I mean, there's other people on this who do pretty bad things, but most of the time the bad things they do, she also did. So it's Cersei Lannister. She's sort of the most incompetent, evil character in the book, possibly. In the books. I'm trying to think of anything more to say. She does continue the dynasty, which I guess, in a roundabout way, it's positive, I suppose. But I don't think it's going to matter on account of them all dying, which is a shame. Number 28, we have Tyanna of the Tower, who was Maegor the Cruel's, I'm going to say third wife. They kind of overlap, but I think that's third. Now, Tyanna of the Tower is this low for a number of reasons. One is that she may or may not have poisoned, killed various of Maegor's children, may or may not have sort of conspired against him. But in that sense, I'm going to give other wives of Maegor the Cruel points for conspiring against him, but I think Tyanna of the Tower isn't doing it for any noble reason. She's not trying to dislodge him, she just wants to be the main wife. So yeah. And the other thing is she's a horrible torturer, whisperer, spy mistress, all that kind of stuff. She's quite evil. She has Alice Haraway tortured to death. A bunch of other people as well. It's pretty bad. And like I said before, Cersei does that as well. She has a bunch of people tortured horribly. So, she's in good company. There is probably a pretty big gulf between Tyanna of the Tower and Cersei Lannister. But yeah, she's not very good PR for Maegor. She's pretty evil. She doesn't really contribute anything good. Happy with her being 28th. In 27th, we have Alicent Hightower, wife of Viserys I. Second wife. Now, Alicent Hightower, if you've only seen the show, you might be a bit surprised to see her this low. But in the book, she is very, very much a driving force behind the Dance of the Dragons. She is a lot more vindictive, a lot more sort of scheming, a lot more warmongery. a lot more ruthless. And it's kind of on her and the Greens for why the war starts. And the only person you could probably blame more than her is probably Otto Hightower. But she is definitely one of the worst people on the Green side. Yeah, I mean it's pretty dire. I'm trying to think of the good things she does. I mean, she's a decent advisor to Aegon II, I guess, in some ways. But then also, I think she also wants, like, she's on the sort of retribution side of the ledger. She doesn't want peace and everyone getting sort of happily together again. I think she's definitely, especially towards the end, she's advising Aegon to do all these bad things. Maybe at the start, when I think she tells him off for doing something stupid. Can't remember what. But yeah, bad advisor, started a civil war. Pretty bad. I mean, Cersei did that as well, though. So, like I said, Cersei just is the worst of all worlds. Number 26. Dana the Defiant. I think this is probably there's a big dividing line between 26 and 27. These bottom three are pretty awful. Dana the Defiant isn't really that bad. In fact, she only really counts on this list because she was briefly married to Baelor I as king, but then he annuls the marriage and locks her up in Maiden Vault. It's more the stuff she did, because I don't think we know anything she actually does as queen, so she's probably only queen for like a week. It's more the stuff she does after, which is getting with Aegon IV and siring Daemon Blackfire. So, similarly to Alicent Hightower and Cersei Lannister, she, in a roundabout way, causes a massive civil war. And the thing is, you'd say, well, you can't really blame her for that. Not really, but I feel like she's definitely on board with Daemon Blackfire becoming king, and trying to make all that happen. And the thing is, what else would you get with Aegon IV? I mean, he's a horrible, fat weirdo. The only reason you do it is because you want power via your child becoming king. So yeah, she's not as bad as these others, but pretty much only does bad things. So yeah, that's why she's 26. Number 25, Selyse Florent. And again, this is more kind of for what you are afraid she might do rather than what she's actually done, because she is definitely a sort of horrendous, blinded zealot, wanting to burn everyone and everything. Wants to burn Edric Storm. Wants to burn. It's fine with the burning of her uncle, Alistair Florent. I can't remember what relation he is to her, but yeah, she's fine with all that. She's gone mad with R'hllor, so that's not great. And you worry that maybe she's going to be involved in burning Shireen, which, if it happens, will probably be the end for Stannis. So that's not going to be very helpful. The whole Red God worship is probably not is a net negative for Stannis in the end. I mean, it might help him get the throne, but it's not going to help him hold it. You're not going to be able to hang on to Westeros with that. I just don't really like her, She's just not a very likeable character. Again, because of that sort of insane religious zealotry, which generally doesn't come across very well when it's a made-up religion. Or in real life. Number 24, Alice Haraway, Maegor the Cruel's second wife. Maybe a little bit harsh, but she is, because she is the one who, as his second wife, his marriage to her causes all sorts of political problems. And I suppose that's another thing you have to take into account with the consorts, especially when you don't have anything else to go on, which is the sort of political bonuses or negatives that you get from the marriage, that the king or queen gets from the marriage. which isn't necessarily the consort doing anything, but is sort of a byproduct of them being a certain, of being born to a certain family, or in this case, having chosen to be a bigamous second wife. Which, again, that is more of her choice, although you don't know how much choice she has in it. Probably not that much. It's her dad, Lucas, I think, Caraway, who was in the hand-ranking video and wasn't very high up, who is the driving force behind this. So how much can you really blame her for that? Probably not that much, but still, it's not a good thing, and there isn't really any good things to go on. There's also that accusation that she was sleeping around with other people to try and have a kid because Magor couldn't, which, if true, would be at least some initiative, but also probably again at the direction of Lucas, and also if true, would get her killed. If not true, then it's not really a positive or negative either way, and in the end you just have someone who's probably at best in over their head and not really choosing to go along with everything. At worst, is kind of okay with it. So you can't rank her very high, and the only option is to rank her quite low, which is this. Number 23, Shaera Targaryen. Not a household name. The wife of Jaehaerys II. We don't really have a huge amount on her. The only thing we know is probably a negative one, which is that because, Aegon V, she's one of the Aegon V's children all marrying the wrong people thing. Jaehaerys marries her, and that's ruins an alliance that Aegon V would have had, which is a negative. It's also a negative because they're brother and sister, which we haven't really had cause. We haven't had that much cause to mention it so far. Dana was Baelor's sister, but they are only married for like a week and don't have any kids. And Baelor is, the priest bloke. So you imagine, I don't know, now it happened. Whereas Shaera Targaryen is kind of the opposite, because one of the things in this is that it's like a weird sort of family tradition where they sort of force their children to marry each other, at which point you can't really blame them. But in this instance, Aegon V is specifically saying, don't marry your sister to Jaehaerys, and don't marry your brother to Shaera, and yet they do it anyway. Which I feel like is extra weird points. Like you're actively being told not to do it anyway. Which, by the way, also applies to Cersei. Like I was saying, everything here applies to Cersei. So yeah, that's also kind of like, why would you do that, Shaera? And also, again, Jaehaerys II is equally at fault here. But we know more about Jaehaerys II. We know more about what he does as king, whereas that's pretty much the only thing we know about Shaera, which is why she's this low. 22nd, Eleanor Penrose. We've reached the kind of don't know anything about these, mate, section of the ranking, which, as you can see, is not that high up. It's quite low down, so most of them are more positive than they are negative. Eleanor Penrose, Aerys I's wife. They don't have any kids. He doesn't really seem interested in her or anyone else. So it's not really her fault, but what can you do? And that's it. She apparently tries to pray for more children and stuff. It doesn't happen. Yeah, not really her fault, but I don't know. Could have done what Alice Haraway may have done, taken some initiative. Probably would have gotten you killed. But also maybe not, who knows. But whatever. Number 21. Miriam Martell. Now, I said we were in the we don't know anything about them, and so we just kind of put them in this middling section. But actually, this one's more... we do know some things about the political side of things, not really anything about her, but the political things are quite wildly different and cancel each other out, maybe. So the really good thing is that she is married to Daryl II. She is the marriage that brings Dawn into the realm, and ends, however many years, 200 years of wars with Dawn, which is amazing. And, unlike with most of these consorts, when you talk about the political side of things, like, maybe you can assume she did have something more to do with it because Dawn is a bit more egalitarian and might actually, I don't know, she might have had some input. So you can credit her more than you normally would, I suppose. Although, again, we don't know anything about her. But then the downside, which isn't her fault, again, in the same way that you wouldn't normally say that the marriage alliance benefits were her, benefit. What isn't her fault is because she's Dornish and all her kids look sort of slightly Dornish. Baelor Breakspear, I think, has black hair or something. Because of all that, that's makes people think, oh, they're not real Targaryens, mate. We need to side with Daemon Blackfire. So yeah, that whole thing is made worse by the fact that Daeron II is married a Dornish woman, which again, in no way her fault. But when all you have to go on is those two big political things, like a massive one, wow, that ended 200-year war with your southern neighbour, versus, wow, this kind of contributed to starting a 100-year civil war. Those are two massive things. They kind of balance out. She ends up here in 21st. Number 20. Jane Westerling. Not that one. I didn't include the War of the Five Kings non-Iron Throne pretender consorts. So I didn't include Jane Westerling from, Robb Stark's wife. And I didn't include Balon Greyjoy's wife, who is in the story, but only a little bit. So yeah, Jane Westerling, wife of Maegor the Cruel, the third one on here, and also his fourth wife. She dies. I always think of her as Jane Seymour because her name's Jane, but she doesn't have a kid. She does get pregnant, but it dies, possibly because of Tower of the Tower. So yeah, Jane Westerling, very little to go on. She's only this high up because I quite like Jane Seymour, and so that's it. Number 19. Emma Arryn. Again, we're back. We had a brief detail with Miriam Martell, but we're back to the we don't really know much about them section. Emma Arryn has more to her because she's in the show, but in the book she's barely mentioned. She does have a kid, Rhaenyra, which means she's above people like Eleanor Penrose and Jane Westerling. But yeah, apart from that, it's not much to go on. And you can't really blame her for any of the civil war that comes after her, because she's just doing what you're meant to do as a royal couple. You're meant to have kids to continue the dynasty. Number 18, Daenerys Targaryen, wife of Aegon IV. Again, not a huge amount to go on. And to be honest, she does have a bit more character, I suppose, than some of these. She's described as sort of very, gentle and delicate and all that sort of thing. She's got, she looks like an albino here. She's, quite, I don't know what's the word. Oh, we're accidentally revealing people. She's quite, sickly, maybe. And yeah, so she keeps having kids and almost dying, and Aegon IV doesn't care. And you feel very sorry for her, being forced to marry Aegon IV. And yeah, but the trouble is she doesn't really do anything. So I guess the only reason she's this high is because she does have kids, even though it does kill her in the end. Number 17. Have we gotten to someone with more sort of stuff to say about? Not really. Rhaella Targaryen, very similar to Daenerys, really. Married to her brother, married to a really horrible king. Doesn't really have a huge amount of agency. Is not really able to do that much. I suppose she's higher because she does, she's involved. She manages to escape King's Landing at the end of Robert's Rebellion. She gets away, and you got to think there's a decent amount of courage and tenacity in that, especially when she's 9 months pregnant or whatever. So doing that, getting her son and unborn daughter out of there, pretty impressive. But yeah, apart from that, we don't have a huge amount about her. Number 16, Daenerys Velaryon, Aegon III's second wife. Again, we don't have. It's like I'm like a broken record here, but don't have a huge amount about her. She shows up towards the end of Fire and Blood, as like she's related to the Baelor Velaryons and that lot. And Aegon likes her apparently, and she makes him smile, which is a big achievement. But yeah, I mean, she seems nice. She manages to have kids with Aegon III, which again is an achievement considering his sort of general misanthropy. And she also manages to, by the sound of it in the history books, sort of be generally liked and respected, which is, pretty another good thing for a consort if you can sort of be a sort of PR exercise for the monarchy in general, to make people like the monarchy more. It's often what the royal consorts, even today, a big part of their role in real life in good old England. Number 15, Helena Targaryen. Now, this might seem a bit too high, I suppose, because she doesn't really do anything either. She has a few kids, which is a plus, but then Blood and Cheese happens, and she goes mental, and then dies, probably killed by someone. So why is she this high? Well, one thing that she does, which has anyone so far done? I don't think anyone else has, which is she has a dragon. She can ride a dragon, which is pretty impressive. In the sense that even though she doesn't actually fight at any point in the Dance of the Dragons, she is still taken into account by the opposite side when they're counting dragons and saying, okay, they have this number, we have this number. And so in that sense, her staying in King's Landing with a dragon is kind of like she is serving a very useful purpose in that civil war. She is kind of she's a threat. If you come here, we have someone with a dragon who will attack you. And whether or not she would have actually been able to do that, we don't really know. But that's still quite a useful purpose. And I suppose the other thing is that in Son for a Son, when she's forced to choose between her sons or have them both die, she does make a choice, which is, even though it's horrendous and traumatic and ends up sending her mad, I mean, it does mean that they don't both die, if we can assume that Blood and Cheese are being honest about the choice given to her. So that's something. Number 14, Cerise Hightower, Maegor the Cruel's first wife. Again, this might seem a bit high, but I quite like Cerise Hightower. She's, as his first wife, they don't have kids, and he tries to get rid of her, but she doesn't take it lying down. She does the Catherine Aragon thing. She refuses to go. She gets the faith whipped up, and all of this is obviously bad for the Targaryen dynasty, but she's working against Maegor the Cruel, so I'm all in favour of that. The other, I suppose, aspect of it is she died of shrewishness. Yes, first time. She dies of shrewishness. Oh, well, I should have quit while I was ahead. She dies of sort of making a snide remark about probably Maegor, which is, I don't know, that's quite a good way to go, sort of mocking him, probably saying something mean. Yeah, I mean, it's not much, to be honest, but it's working against Maegor in a little bit, so I like that. And number 13, I think, is another Maegor. Yeah, it's Eleanor Costain. She's higher because she might have killed him, or been involved in killing him. that's about it. And like I said, Cersei Lannister killed a king and she's dead last, but this is Maegor, so we like killing kings when it's Maegor. And she does also help Jaehaerys a bit afterwards, which she didn't have to do. So that's nice. Number 12, Rohan of Tyrosh, the wife of Daemon Blackfire. Is this the first? No, it's Stannis. It's not the first Pretender one. But yeah, Rohan of Tyrosh, another one where we don't really know anything about her. But she does have 7 kids, which is quite impressive. So for the Blackfires, from their perspective, she's integral to their cause actually sticking around. And unlike with the other ones where they're backing Maegor the Cruel, like Daemon Blackfire isn't that bad. He's not a Maegor the Cruel type. And you are fighting Daeron II the Good, but still. And also you imagine that, like, I don't know, she's not out there sort of pillaging towns and burning down villages for the good of the Blackfire cause. So, you know, there's not a huge amount you can blame her for it. And she also takes the initiative of fleeing Westeros with her surviving sons after the failure of the first Blackfire Rebellion, so keeps the cause alive. And again, I'm struggling to think, because that is keeping a civil war going. This is all bad stuff for the realm, but I think because it's, I don't know, it's more understandable, it's more reasonable. That's why she's this high. Number 11, Jaehaera Targaryen, Aegon III's first wife, and here, kind of like Miriam Martell, the only real stuff we have about her is her role as a political pawn. She's one of the few surviving Targaryens of the Dance of the Dragons, and she ends up marrying Aegon III to try and heal the rift between the Blacks and the Greens. She's Aegon II's daughter. And that's very useful and very important at the start of the book when the Civil War could keep going, potentially. So yeah, she does then end up getting killed probably by Unwin Peake's lot, which is pretty bad. But that's not her fault. So yeah, I mean, she ended a civil war, or helped to end a civil war. That's pretty good. That'll get you to a level place, even if you were just a child at the time and really had no role in it, no choice in the matter. But now we're up to the top 10, so surely we have like some unambiguously great consorts, right? Surely? Maybe not. This might be a controversial decision. I put Hisdar zo Lorak in number 10. Now this is kind of it depends on what you think about Hisdar, because really we don't know what his motives are. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know whether he's helping Daenerys or not. Certainly there's some stuff he does, like crowning himself king after she vanishes, that maybe makes you think there's a bit suspicious there. And he's almost certainly not like, oh, I'm just holding the fort for Daenerys, it'll all be fine, don't worry about it. But at the same time, he doesn't like try and purge all of Daenerys' crew. He doesn't kill Strong Bellas, doesn't kill Barristan, doesn't kill the Dothraki. Arguably because he still needs them. But yeah, so it makes me, I don't think he poisoned the locusts, basically. I think, it's a bit obvious, probably. It's rarely but when it's there's one suspect who's that obvious, it probably isn't them. So with that said, the stuff he does for Daenerys before the whole poisoning the locusts becomes a thing is pretty good. He gets peace in Meereen, he achieves it. And again, there's certainly questions about how legitimate that peace is. Is he able to achieve that peace because he is the Harpy kind of thing? Probably not, but maybe, who knows? So yeah, it's hard to put him any higher. He definitely doesn't seem to really care much about Daenerys. It's all a political thing. But he does achieve some things for her. He will probably die horribly in the next book, if he hasn't already. But yeah, that happens to most of these people. Number 9. Rhaena Targaryen, the 6th or 5th or something wife of Maegor the Cruel. Now, again, this is entirely because she works against Maegor in a pretty useful way. She's the second person on this list who can ride a dragon after Helena, and unlike Maegor, she actually does ride a dragon and gets it to Jaehaerys and good Queen Alysanne. At which point it's, even though she doesn't fight with it, again, it's about that sort of power projection of, well, now this side has 3 dragons, whereas before it was 2v2, now it's 3v1. I can feel more comfortable siding with Jaehaerys. So that is a very useful thing that she does for Jaehaerys against Maegor. And again, you might say, well, aren't we supposed to be ranking them on how much they help the king, not the person trying to kill the king? Yes, but it's Maegor. I make an exception for Maegor. And then she is one of the people who we know the most about here from the history, because she does go on to be like a big player in the first part of Jaehaerys' reign. And she does loads of stuff there that's kind of neither really good or bad. She's sort of she's the queen in the west, east. I don't know geography, especially not fake geography. I'm going to queen in the east or something. She's on Dragonstone. She's sort of like kind of insinuating that she should be queen, but she never really does anything about it. Her daughter ends up getting killed by going to Valyria or whatever. It's pretty bad stuff in general. There's all that poisoning with Andrew Farman. There's Alyssa Farman stealing the eggs. This is all not great. But it's also, she's not queen. She's not queen mother. She's queen sister, you know. Or queen dowager, I suppose, to a king who's not really relevant anymore. So I don't know how much I factor that in. Mostly I factor in... Oh, and I forgot to say, and I knew I'd forgotten to say it, she's also queen to Aegon the Uncrowned as well, isn't she? And in that situation, I think she wants to go and fight with him against Maegor the Cruel, but he says no. And that was probably a good decision for her to ask that, because, you know, if Aegon the Uncrowned dies, she's probably not going to go well anyway. So she may as well do it, and maybe it would have helped, maybe it wouldn't. But yeah, so she's a decent consort there. She's quite savvy, quite canny. Especially when she goes on that like progress with the Aegon the Uncrowned and stuff. She knows. You can tell that she's got a bit of metal to her, which is good for consorts. And not many of them do, because they're not really in a position where they can do. And the ones that do are quite high up on this list. I mean, good Queen Alysanne does as well. Number 8, Rhaenys Targaryen, joint wife of Aegon I. So she helps with the conquest of Westeros. You know, it's her, Aegon, and Visenya who do all the work, and it's sort of split kind of evenly. They go off and do things as needed. So, you know, she conquered Westeros. That's pretty big. She goes off and fights in Dorne, dies. She's only a bit lower than Visenya because I don't know, if she dies sooner, she's able to do less. And I don't know. Her death in Dawn probably elongates the war, I'm guessing. I can't remember when it happens. But in the sense that it makes Aegon angry and he's going to keep fighting. Not really her fault. Is there anything else? I suppose she's possibly unfaithful to him. Which might be why Aenys is around. But if that's the case, then that unfaithfulness would be the only reason why the Targaryen dynasty continued at all. Which is generally a good thing, although I'm not a huge fan of dynasties in general. But we'll count it as a positive here. Ahead of her, though, slightly is Visenya. Even though I don't really like Visenya as much, I think she was probably a better consort. Because she also does things like set up the Kingsguard and stuff, which is pretty useful. and she's more useful in the wars and stuff in Dawn and after Rhaenys is dead, and helping Maegor the Cruel out. And the other thing is that she does help Maegor the Cruel out, but she's dead before most of the bad stuff he does happens. So you can kind of see her point that Maegor the Cruel is a better king than Aenys. But, it's... Once Maegor goes completely off the deep end, she's dead, so you can kind of excuse her some of that. Probably not, though. She might use black magic to bring him back. To be honest, yeah, there's quite a lot of bad stuff with Visenya, but there's also all the stuff with Rhaenys, and comes up with a Kingsguard as well. So not bad. Number 6. Khal Drogo. Look at him there. First husband of Daenerys. So similar to Visenya, really. Kind of a horrible person. Does lots of horrible things. But also very useful. Like, very supportive of the monarch. And obviously there's a much weirder... I mean, all this stuff is weird. Most of these people are married to their siblings. If they're not, they're married to children, like Khal Drogo. But, this is a story that we've been given. And Khal Drogo is quite useful to Daenerys because... she's always, like, all of the nice things that she wants to do, like, not have as many people killed horribly. He kind of is like, I don't really know about this, but you're the queen, so you're the Khaleesi, so yeah, sure, whatever, we'll do it. Which is quite nice. And it's kind of his presence that keeps enough people around and stops Daenerys from being killed earlier than people get angry with her and try and kill her. And he said he's going to invade Westeros for her, which is nice. Definitely would have helped her. Again, horrible person, all that stuff, but quite useful to have around. Number 5. Betha Blackwood, wife of Aegon V. Now this is a complete... this is just bias, because we know nothing about Betha Blackwood, pretty much, except for she married Aegon for love, and they had a bunch of kids, and they wanted to arrange political marriages for them, but they didn't manage to. That's about it. But she married Aegon V. I love Aegon V. Aegon V loved her. Therefore, Aegon V is, he must be right, because he's Aegon V. And I imagine she probably shares similar values to him. The Blackwoods are always nice in this story. She's probably helping him with all of his reforms and stuff. This is all speculation, conjecture, whatever, but I just believe it to be true. Maybe if Fire and Blood Part 2 or the later Dunk and Egg books ever came out, we would have cause to put her up to rival Good Queen Alysanne, but seeing as we don't know any of that, I can't really put her any higher than 5th, but 5th is still way too high, realistically. Number 4, Marjorie Tyrell. Now this is again probably too high, because you think, wasn't she possibly involved in killing Joffrey? That's pretty bad, right? Well, yeah, but it's Joffrey, so that's good. She's also the only person here to be married to 3 kings. Rhaena was married to 2. I forgot to put Aegon the Uncrowned on there. And yeah, so she's obviously either a political pawn or a political player in her own right. Probably more likely the latter. So that's, she's kind of working for the advancement of herself and her family, which isn't ideal. But she is also quite good with the people and all that, she's the Tyrells bring the food back after stopping it. She's good PR for the monarchy. She's possibly in a position where she could reform Joffrey and teach him to be a decent human being until she realizes she can't, and then she's trying to do the same with Tommen, but Cersei's trying not to let her. So she could be a good queen, I think. She just doesn't really have much chance to do it. And also, I suppose, there's the political advantage of the marriage, where it basically props up the Baratheon regime and saves them at the Blackwater. So that's pretty good. So yeah, Marjorie Tyrell, number 4. God. I mean, this is kind of the trouble. There's not many that are bad, but there's also not that many that are good. They kind of tend to fade into the background, as is the way with these things. Number 3, though. Number 3 is Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince. Now we've had, sort of people joining in the fight, Visenya, Rhaenys, Khal Drogo, I suppose, kind of. But Daemon Targaryen is very much a military consort. That's his main benefit to Rhaenyra. He has a dragon, and he does lots of dragon things with it. Kills Aegon and Vhagar, Aemond even. And he's a decent military advisor on a lot of things. Obviously he's unfaithful and he's a horrible person and all that, as we've established in multiple videos. But, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, as king or prince consort or whatever, he's half decent. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on here. He also produces children, including the one who survives, Aegon III. So that's points for that. So yeah, is there anything else? He's just Daemon Targaryen, isn't he? He's a rogue prince. He's like Dark in Equal Parts. 3rd place. Now second place. Second place is the one that I said this person had a decent chance of challenging Good Queen Alysanne. And you probably won't expect who it is. You probably don't even know who they are, because they're not from any of the main series. They're in Fire and Blood, but they're not in any of the TV shows. It's Alyssa Velaryon. Now, Alyssa Velaryon is the wife of Aenys, one of the worst kings. But Alyssa Velaryon is pretty impactful on the story. So we don't hear a huge amount about her whilst she's married to Aenys. She has a bunch of kids. Aegon the Uncrowned, Rhaena, Jaehaerys, Alysanne, Viserys. A bunch of kids, so immediately good points. But then really what happens is when it all kicks off when Aenys dies, because then she's kind of leading the rebellion. There's also Aegon the Uncrowned, but he immediately dies horribly. So then it's kind of Alyssa Velaryon and her kids are the main challengers. And she's the one who kind of keeps them alive. They get taken hostage, taken prisoner on Dragonstone by Visenya. And so she keeps them alive through that. And then at one point after Visenya dies, she takes Jaehaerys and Alysanne and escapes with them. And there's 2 things that are really good about this. One is that we don't actually know where they escaped to. It doesn't say anywhere in the book. In fact, in the book it's like where they went to, who knows. But then, like, obviously, maybe no one else knew at the time, but when these guys came back and became king, didn't Jaehaerys ever mention, or Alysanne ever mention, or Alyssa ever mention to anyone where they went? You have so many records of this time. Didn't Septon Barth write down something, or Grand Maester Bennifer? But apparently no, that's lost to history. So they must have gone somewhere. Clearly so hidden that Maegor and that lot couldn't find them. Until they rocked back up at Storm's End. And possibly the implication is that they were at Storm's End the whole time, but I don't know how you'd hide a dragon there from, like, everyone. Or 2 dragons. But whatever. The other thing is that her other son, Viserys, is still in King's Landing as a hostage, and so he's tortured to death. And Alyssa Velaryon is just like, yeah, unfortunate, but gotta happen. She doesn't go back for him, which is unfortunately the right decision because she would have just been killed as well. And her ability to sort of make that, you could say it's cold, but I think it's pragmatic decision. Better 1 son die than 3. Kind of I gave Helena points for that as well. So yeah. And then beyond that, when Jaehaerys eventually becomes king, she's basically the only person who stops everything from breaking out into a civil war. She's like acting as regent, and she's pretty decent at it. Fire and Blood, what's his name? Archmaester Gildane has a bit of a go at her at times, but she's pretty good. She stops Rogar Baratheon's attempted coup. She's like, absolutely not. And she just stops him pretty much on her own. You know, the other people back her up, but they do that after she's like, no, this isn't happening. And then before that, actually, when Jaehaerys and Alysanne run off to Dragonstone, and then Brogar and Alyssa show up and say, hang on, this is a terrible idea. Alyssa basically says this is a terrible idea. She tries to convince them, which is the correct thing to do because it is a terrible idea. It doesn't work. So, but then she, once she realizes they're not going to be convinced, she's like, okay, let's go home. Rogar wants to like fight it out, but Alyssa Valerian's like, no, that's a terrible idea. We'll all die. We don't want to kill like the whole Kingsguard, who, by the way, are only there because she recommended it. She recommended the War for the White Cloaks, which ended up choosing 5 really good Kingsguard, who were high ranked on my Kingsguard ranking. So that's her idea. And of course, the book tries to give credit to Jaehaerys for being like, ooh, Jaehaerys decided it wouldn't be a joust, it would be a melee or whatever. What a great idea, Jaehaerys. Doesn't give any credit to Alyssa. But, you know, that's Alyssa's idea. And then she goes off and marries Rogar Baratheon, even though she doesn't like, well, she's already married to him, but she's married to him. They keep the marriage going, even though it's like they don't like each other really, for political reasons, to try, because Rogar Baratheon is important, and Alyssa needs him to not rebel and fight Jaehaerys. She ends up dying in childbirth, tragically. And yeah, she's a very good queen. Well, we don't really know how good she is as a queen, but she's a really, really good queen mother and also good rebel against Maegor the Cruel, which, I mean, that's been a common theme throughout all these. If you're against Maegor the Cruel, then I am for you. And so, yeah, she comes close to good Queen Alysanne, but not quite close enough. I think Alysanne is still just about out in front. So yeah, that was that. I kind of rushed through that, didn't I? I don't know why. But yeah, that's my list. Tell me in the comments, as usual, who is your favourite. Oh, and one other thing. This picture of Cersei, you see her hair is going off the bottom. Look at this. Look how long her hair is. I didn't do anything to that image. That's just me. I cut out her body, and this is her hair. Look how long her hair is. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that's my list. Tell me why Selyse Florent should be number 1. Give me a good reason, because she's obviously married to Stannis the Banis. That's all you need, but give me a good reason anyway. And with all that said, the next video is going to be not a Song of Ice and Fire related. It's going to be very long. I'm not going to bother editing it that much, as in my usual stupid things. I'm probably just going to have like still images and stuff. So it'll probably get like 5 views, but I don't care. Haha, I don't have to care. I can just do whatever I want. So yes, until next time, goodbye.